As he traveled, Duan Lingtian could feel the gravity growing stronger. Suddenly, as if sensing something, Duan Lingtian abruptly turned his head to look to his right. He saw a small black dot appear beyond the vast sea. So far away, yet I can still see it. It's either a large island or a piece of land. Seeing the small black dot, Duan Lingtian felt a little excited. Whether it was a large island or land, there might be people there. Thinking that he might meet people and ask where he was, Duan Lingtian didn't hesitate at all. He immediately flew towards the distant black dot, his speed increasing rapidly. It's a large island. As he got closer, Duan Lingtian finally saw clearly that it was a large island. Such a big island should have human habitation. Thinking of this, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but feel a little excited. Boom! A loud bang interrupted Duan Lingtian's excitement, causing his expression to change. Because he saw a massive creature break out of the sea ahead, stirring up huge waves as it soared into the air, blocking his path. This savage beast was entirely black, covered in scales, and its oily green eyes stared intently at Duan Lingtian, with black drool dripping from its mouth. The savage beast looked somewhat like a pangolin, but it was much larger than a pangolin. Standing there, it resembled a small mountain. I was just looking for someone to practice with. You delivering yourself to my doorstep saves me the trouble. Duan Lingtian's expression quickly softened, and his eyes narrowed. He could tell the speed the pangolin displayed just now indicated its strength to a certain extent. This speed was on par with his own when he wasn't using true chi. It's a savage beast in the early stage of mortal shedding realm. Duan Lingtian could tell. He had learned a little about savage beasts from Xuanai before, so he wasn't surprised to encounter them on this journey. Whoa! The savage beast stared at Duan Lingtian for a while, its eerie green eyes flashing. After a guttural cry, it lunged at Duan Lingtian, moving as fast as a bolt of lightning. Good timing. Facing the savage beast, Duan Lingtian showed no fear. He took a step forward and met its charge. However, he merely used true chi to maintain his flight, not intending to use true chi to fight. Facing the savage beast, his muscles bulged all over his body, and explosive power surged into his fists, erupting outwards. Bang! The savage beast arrived in front of him in an instant. Duan Lingtian punched its forehead, and with a loud bang, he used the recoil to retreat. In contrast, the savage beast was sent flying over 10 meters before it stopped. What strong defense! No wonder Xuanai said that the savage beast's defense could rival that of half the dragon clan. Duan Lingtian exclaimed, "But what a pity! You encountered me. My physical body has been tempered by the power of the 7 treasures' exquisite pagoda, making it even stronger than a 5-clawed divine dragon's body." Facing the savage beast, which let out another strange cry and charged at him, Duan Lingtian's gaze turned cold, and he shot out like a cannonball. Whoosh! The cannonball shot out, meeting the savage beast head-on. Bang! 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 Facing the continuous true chi waves surging from the savage beast's mouth, Duan Lingtian punched out repeatedly, shattering all the true chi waves. Each time he shattered a true chi wave, he felt an exhilarating sensation. Whoa! The savage beast let out a sharp, strange cry, its voice noticeably different from before. Its current strange cry made Duan Lingtian feel a little uneasy. Soon, Duan Lingtian understood why he felt uneasy, because the savage beast was calling for its companions. The surrounding sea surface churned violently, and huge waves continuously rose. Each time they rose, they were accompanied by a massive black shadow shooting out, quickly reaching the void realm. Boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by a series of loud bangs from the sea, hundreds of identical savage beasts appeared around Duan Lingtian. These savage beasts all looked exactly like the pangolin-like savage beast. Scanning his surroundings, Duan Lingtian saw hundreds of eerie green eyes. They are all savage beasts in the early stage of mortal shedding realm. Good heavens, you couldn't beat me, so you called so many helpers? Duan Lingtian looked at the savage beast he had just suppressed and chuckled. However, the savage beast, lacking intelligence, obviously didn't understand Duan Lingtian's words. It merely nodded at the 100 savage beasts, causing them to nod in turn. Duan Lingtian wasn't afraid of 10 or 8 such savage beasts, but with 100 of them, Duan Lingtian had to be cautious. So, he immediately took out his sun-shooting bow and the arrows he carried with him. The 100 savage beasts surrounded Duan Lingtian like dumplings. At some point, 3 figures appeared high above Duan Lingtian, and the group of savage beasts, a middle-aged man, a young man, and a young woman. Such a scene is rare. The middle-aged man, dressed as a scholar with a headscarf and a feather fan, looked down at the scene below and smiled. Indeed, generally, those with the strength to make armored beasts call for their kin usually have the strength to kill the armored beasts in a short time. Yet he actually attracted the armored beast clan. The young woman nodded, agreeing deeply. He's simply courting death. The young man snorted and said, I don't think so. The middle-aged scholar shook his head, looking with interest at the purple figure being attacked by 100 armored beasts. This youth in purple robes doesn't seem very old. 35 years old. Just then, the young man next to him stared at the purple figure, a strange light flickering in his eyes, and then spoke. Ye man, don't you know it's impolite to probe someone's age like that? The young woman frowned and said. The young man smiled indifferently, and when he looked at the purple figure, a hint of disdain, a condescending disdain, appeared in his eyes. Who's there? Duan Lingtian was originally wary of the 100 savage beasts around him when he suddenly felt a mental energy sweep over him, enveloping his entire body in an instant before retreating. Immediately, he looked up at the sky. His gaze instantly locked onto one of the 3 people in the sky, the young man who was looking at him with disdain. It was him, using mental energy to spy on me. Duan Lingtian's expression darkened slightly. He hadn't expected to encounter such an impolite person right after meeting people overseas. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And just then, the 100 savage beasts surrounding Duan Lingtian's eerie green eyes flashed, and they all moved, swarming towards Duan Lingtian like a plague of locusts. Senior Lin, should we help him? The young woman looked at the middle-aged scholar and asked, why bother with him? Let him fend for himself. Before the middle-aged scholar could speak, the young man said indifferently. The gaze the youth in purple robes had given him earlier made him very unhappy. If it weren't for the middle-aged scholar being present, he would have already acted, cooperating with the savage beasts to kill the other party. Now, hearing the young woman suggest saving the youth in purple robes, he naturally wasn't pleased. No rush, let's wait and see. The middle-aged scholar spoke calmly, while also glancing at the young man, causing the young man's expression to change slightly, and he lowered his head in fear. Good timing. In contrast, Duan Lingtian, facing the 100 savage beasts charging at him, roared and ascended into the air like an arrow leaving the bowstring, shooting towards the sky. In an instant, he had reached high altitude, occupying the high ground. The 100 savage beasts naturally followed closely. Buzz, facing the 100 savage beasts, Duan Lingtian's expression remained unchanged. With a raise of his hand, an arrow was placed on the bowstring of the sun-shooting bow. Although his strength had greatly increased, he could only draw the bowstring a little. Only a faint arc could be seen where the bowstring was drawn. He can't even fully draw the bow, yet he dares to fight 100 armored beasts. He's truly overestimating himself. High in the sky, the young man, Ye man, said disdainfully. This bow, just as the young woman also lightly frowned, a little puzzled. The middle-aged scholar's eyes lit up, recognizing the extraordinary nature of the sun-shooting bow in Duan Lingtian's hand. Clang! With a muffled, thunder-like explosion, the arrow in Duan Lingtian's hand shot out, soaring into the sky. In an instant, the arrow descended, transforming into a sky full of sword light, falling like a meteor arrow rain, instantly enveloping the 100 savage beasts. Meteor arrow rain. What Duan Lingtian was now performing was precisely the meteor arrow rain from the tie-in meteor arrow. Compared to meteor strike, the meteor arrow rain was significantly weaker. It was still in the first realm of Saint-grade martial arts moves, just beginning to grasp the basics. However, in this situation, meteor arrow rain was much more effective than meteor strike. Furthermore, with this arrow, Duan Lingtian not only unleashed his full physical body strength, but also completely poured out the true qi within his qi without any reservation. This was the first time he had fully exerted himself against an enemy since breaking through to the early stage of mortal shedding realm. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The sky full of sword light fell like a meteor arrow rain, and all the savage beasts were enveloped by the meteor arrow rain. Puff, 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 accompanied by a series of soft sounds. More than half of the 100 savage beasts had their scales pierced, dying instantly. One arrow killed nearly 100 savage beasts. Although a small portion were not killed, Duan Lingtian was already very satisfied with this outcome, and a smile appeared on his face. So strong. High in the sky, the young woman's autumn eyes flashed, her face showing surprise, and her gaze towards Duan Lingtian completely changed. Not bad. The middle-aged scholar nodded slightly with a smile. Seeing Duan Lingtian hogging the limelight so much, Yiman's face was as ugly as if his father and mother had died. After nearly 100 savage beasts were killed, they all fell into the sea, once again stirring up huge waves. Before long, the entire sea was stained red with blood. The stench of blood rose to the sky, extremely pungent. My arrow. Duan Lingtian furrowed his brows, realizing he couldn't retrieve the arrow he had shot. The inscription formation seemed to have failed. Is it because of the gravity here? For a moment, that was the only explanation Duan Lingtian could come up with. He had heard Xuanai mention before that because the gravity and magnetic field of the Dao Martial Saint Land were extraordinary, many inscription formations from Cloud Continent would fail. I should have chased after it to retrieve the arrow earlier. The speed of the arrows from Meteor Shower is far less than my arrow flight technique. Duan Lingtian felt a pang of regret. Now it's your turn. Duan Lingtian's gaze quickly fell upon the remaining 30-odd fierce beasts, and a sinister smile soon curved his lips. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The remaining 30 stragglers were all killed after Duan Lingtian unleashed another meteor shower. Not a single one survived. Arrow flight. As the arrow rain whistled down, Duan Lingtian raised his hand and shot another arrow. This arrow was condensed from his true energy. As the arrow flew, he stepped onto it and pursued it. Nearing the sea surface, he successfully grabbed the arrow he had just shot and retrieved it. Thump, 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 thump. Just as Duan Lingtian retrieved his arrow and was about to leave, a series of strange sounds suddenly echoed from the sea beneath his feet. Immediately after, the recently calm sea surface began to churn. Hurry, it's the blood of the nether armor beasts attracting other fierce beasts. Just then, a pleasant voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears, warning him. Duan Lingtian instinctively looked up and saw that it was the young woman among the 3 people high in the sky who was warning him. Without hesitation, he pushed off with his feet and ascended into the air. However, he was still too late. Boom, 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 boom. Accompanied by a series of loud bangs, the sea surface was torn open and towering waves surged. Massive figures appeared all around Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian's face changed as he looked around, only to find himself surrounded by various fierce beasts. The first 3 beasts that appeared gave him a sense of powerlessness. This was because the speed of these 3 beasts was incredibly fast, unbelievably so. Their speed was almost twice his own, at least at the Transcendence Realm, late stage. Damn it, I've kicked a steel plate. Duan Lingtian's face was grim. With the sun shooting bow, he was confident he could kill fierce beasts at the Transcendence Realm, middle stage, but the Transcendence Realm, late stage, was too great a difference. Even with the sun shooting bow, it would likely be difficult to overcome such a large gap. However, Duan Lingtian was not one to sit idly by and wait for death. Facing the 3 Transcendence Realm, late-stage beasts that charged at him first, he fixed his gaze on one of them, his eyes cold. At the same time, the true energy in his chi surged through his 15 saint veins and instantly reached his hands. Raising his hands, Duan Lingtian unleashed his full physical strength, and with his true energy, he drew the sun-shooting bow a little, then released the arrow. Meteor strike. Immediately, the arrow shot out and disappeared into the air, reappearing lodged in one of the eyes of the beast Duan Lingtian had targeted, blinding it. Roar! The beast, blinded in one eye by Duan Lingtian, roared in fury, its speed increasing by several folds, and in an instant, it was before Duan Lingtian. Not good. Duan Lingtian's face changed drastically. His arrow was embedded in the beast's eye, and he couldn't retrieve it. For a moment, he could only condense an arrow with true energy and use arrow flight, hoping to dodge the beast's frontal attack. However, he had clearly underestimated the beast. Roar! Almost the instant Duan Lingtian stepped on the arrow and shot forward, a deafening roar exploded in his ears, accompanied by a colossal black shadow that blotted out the sky. Sound of Yellow Springs. Realizing he was being attacked at close quarters, Duan Ling Tian immediately unleashed sound of yellow springs, the only close combat technique in the Grand Universe meteor arrow skill. The bowstring of the sun-shooting bow, a dragon tendon of a five-clawed demonic dragon, vibrated, and a true energy light blade swept out, meeting the fierce beast. However, the true energy light blade only left shallow marks on the beast's body, and it only enraged the beast further, making it seem determined not to give up until Duan Ling Tian was dead. Am I, Duan Ling Tian, going to die here without even reaching the Dao Martial Saint land? Duan Ling Tian's face was pale. Enter the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Just then, Old Hua's voice entered Duan Ling Tian's ears. Old Hua, inside the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, had been observing Duan Ling Tian's situation outside due to the violent spatial fluctuations within the pagoda. Seeing that Duan Ling Tian was about to be killed, he quickly warned him. Enter the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. Before the fourth layer of the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda is repaired, isn't the space inside unstable and will push me out? Old Hua's words made Duan Ling Tian pause. However, he didn't ponder it further. With a thought, he entered the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. As soon as he entered, he felt a pushing force envelop him, pushing him back out. Boom! As soon as he came out, Duan Ling Tian was sent flying by a slap from the beast, sustaining serious injuries. Fortunately, Duan Ling Tian had hidden in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda in time. Otherwise, he would have been killed by now. Although he only hid for a moment inside the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, he managed to avoid the beast's fatal blow. The force now striking him was merely the residual power of that attack. The Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda can be used like this? Duan Ling Tian was stunned as he grabbed the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda, which had almost fallen into the sea. At that moment, he had thought he was going to die. Roar! The beast, blinded in one eye by Duan Ling Tian, was even more enraged to see that Duan Ling Tian was still alive, and it charged at him again. The other two Transcendence Realm, late-stage beasts also arrived. This situation, even if I hide in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda and dodge one beast's fatal blow, when I'm thrown out, I'll probably be killed by the other beasts. Duan Ling Tian gave a bitter smile, completely abandoning the idea of entering the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda again. He could escape the first, but not the 15th. Whoosh! Just as Duan Ling Tian thought he was going to die and showed a bitter expression, a person appeared beside him, as if a gust of wind had passed. Seeing the person who appeared before him, Duan Ling Tian was startled. He recognized the newcomer. It was one of the three people who had been watching his predicament from high in the sky. The middle-aged man dressed as a scholar, wearing a headscarf and holding a feather fan. Scram! After the middle-aged scholar appeared, he slowly uttered a single word. Almost the instant the middle-aged scholar's words fell, the feather fan in his hand flew out and disappeared into the air. At least, in Duan Ling Tian's eyes, his folding fan had vanished. Immediately after, Duan Ling Tian watched in horror. The three Transcendence Realm, late-stage beasts closest to him were all cut in half, their upper and lower bodies separated, and they fell down, their eyes wide like copper gongs. With the death of the three Transcendence Realm, late-stage beasts, the remaining beasts all halted their movements. Their eyes filled with fear as they looked at the middle-aged scholar. Although fierce beasts did not possess human-like intelligence, they were creatures that followed the law of the jungle. Seeing even stronger beasts than themselves killed, they all hesitated for a moment. As the feather fan returned to the middle-aged scholar's hand, the surrounding beasts scattered, plunging into the sea and disappearing without a trace. Thank you, Senior. Duan Ling Tian, having narrowly escaped death, took a deep breath before recovering his senses and quickly thanked the middle-aged scholar, while also being shocked by the other party's strength. The middle-aged scholar quietly looked at Duan Ling Tian, saying nothing. In his mind, he couldn't help but recall the scene that had just unfolded. In fact, just now, when the purple-clad young man before him was almost killed by that Transcendence Realm, late-stage beast, he had intended to intervene. However, he never expected that just as he was about to make his move, the purple-clad young man would disappear into thin air. He had initially thought that the purple-clad young man had hidden his strength and used a speed that even he couldn't perceive. But to his surprise, the next moment, the purple-clad young man reappeared. Although he had dodged the Transcendence Realm, late-stage beast's fatal blow, he was still affected by the residual force and sustained injuries. At that moment, he realized that the purple-clad young man hadn't hidden his strength. Instead, he had used some special means to disappear for a brief moment, dodging the beast's fatal blow. Senior, seeing the middle-aged scholar staring at him without speaking, Duan Ling Tian felt a little uneasy. This seemingly normal fellow. Surely he didn't have those kinds of special hobbies, did he? For a moment, Duan Ling Tian felt a pang of regret. He should have disguised himself to look uglier. Sometimes, being too handsome wasn't a good thing. Duan Ling Tian had made up his mind. If this guy really tried to force him, he would rather die than submit. A scholar can be killed, but not humiliated. One could imagine. If the middle-aged scholar knew what Duan Ling Tian was thinking right now, he would surely slap him, and even regret saving Duan Ling Tian. Are you also from Fuyu Town? Finally, the middle-aged scholar withdrew his gaze and asked with a slight smile. Fuyu Town. Hearing the middle-aged scholar's words, Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but be startled. What's that? You don't know Fuyu Town? This time, it was the middle-aged scholar's turn to be surprised. I don't know. Duan Ling Tian gave an awkward smile and said, ever since I left my hometown, I got lost in the vast sea. It took me several months of traveling to reach here. Fuyu Town is Fuyu Island. Do you see that island? At this moment, the young woman also descended and pointed towards the island in the distance. That island was also the one Duan Ling Tian had been planning to go to. I was just about to go there to ask for directions. Duan Ling Tian said with a smile. Why did you come here? The young woman asked curiously. I got lost. Duan Ling Tian said with a bitter smile, then asked, I see the gravity here seems very strong. Is this place still far from the Dao Martial Saint Land? You're not from the Dao Martial Holy Land. Hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, the young woman couldn't help exclaiming in shock. Duan Ling Tian nodded, puzzled as to why the young woman was so surprised. Admittedly, the young woman was quite attractive. Though she fell slightly short of his two fiancés, she was still a complete beauty in the making. Because of her earlier reminder, Duan Ling Tian felt rather favorable toward her. Surely you're not from the mortal continent. The young woman stared at him as if she'd seen a ghost. Yes, I'm from the mortal continent. Duan Ling Tian nodded, then asked in bewilderment. But is it really that shocking? Hold on, let me be sure. Are you a native of the mortal continent, or a native of the Dao Martial Holy Land, who moved to the mortal continent halfway through life? The young woman pressed. At this point, Duan Ling Tian noticed that both the middle-aged man and the young man who had just landed, who had earlier probed him with mental energy, were watching him with great interest. I'm a native of the mortal continent. Though he didn't know why they cared, Duan Ling Tian answered truthfully. Good heavens, you're simply a monster. The young woman gasped, covering her mouth. Though the middle-aged man didn't lose his composure, his eyes still gleamed. When he looked at Duan Ling Tian again, it was as if he were gazing at some priceless treasure. In contrast, the young man's expression grew darker, his gaze toward Duan Ling Tian brimming with jealousy. A native of the mortal continent, 35 years old, single-handedly slaying over 100 early-stage of mortal shedding realm savage beasts called shadow-armored beasts. Don't you think you're a monster? Seeing Duan Ling Tian's puzzled look, the young woman explained. So those savage beasts are called shadow-armored beasts. Wait, how do you know my age? Duan Ling Tian muttered to himself at first, then suddenly recalled that she had mentioned his age and couldn't help crying out. He was indeed 35 this year. Even on Yinshao continent, aside from a few close friends and people back home in the Great Han Dynasty, almost no one knew his real age. Now, having it revealed by a stranger, Duan Ling Tian was naturally shocked. Just now, Yi Man used a mental secret art to probe your age. The young woman said, there's actually a mental secret art that can check someone's age? Duan Ling Tian was greatly alarmed. Only now did he realize what the young man had been examining, his age. A mental secret art that checks age isn't anything rare in the Dao Martial Holy Land. The young woman added, right, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name is Guo Li, from the Guo family of Fuyu Island. Soon, the young woman turned to Duan Ling Tian and introduced herself. I'm Duan Ling Tian, from Yunshao continent of the mortal continent. Duan Ling Tian replied with a smile. He's a scion of the Yi family of Fuyu Island, named Yi Man. I apologize for his earlier rudeness. Guo Li then introduced the young man beside her, Yi Man, to Duan Ling Tian. Guoli, aren't you overstepping? Who asked you to apologize on my behalf? Yi-Man snorted. Yi-Man, don't befriend just anyone. A lowborn from the mortal continent isn't qualified to mingle with me. Lowborn. The moment Yi-Man said this, not only did Duan Lingtian's face darken, but Guo Li and the middle-aged man also looked extremely displeased. So, you consider yourself highborn? Duan Lingtian narrowed his eyes slightly, looked Yi-Man up and down, and asked calmly, I can't speak for others, but in front of you, I, Yi-Man, am naturally highborn. Yi-Man lifted his chin, gave a nasal snort, and spoke down to Duan Lingtian. For Guo Li's sake, I won't fuss over you. Not only is this ill-mannered highborn unwilling to befriend me, even if he wanted to, I might not agree. Duan Lingtian took a deep breath, suppressed his anger, and retorted sarcastically, You. Yi-Man's expression changed drastically. Just as he was about to act, he felt the middle-aged man's gaze and had to swallow his rage. But the look he gave Duan Lingtian was filled with murderous intent. My name is Lin Qingrong. After shooting Yi-Man a warning glance, the middle-aged man turned to Duan Lingtian and introduced himself with a smile. Senior Lin. Duan Lingtian again saluted as a junior, neither servile nor arrogant. Duan Lingtian. I came to Fuyu Island this time to recruit young genius martial cultivators and Dao cultivators for Qiushan City. Guo Li here is a genius martial cultivator I recruited on Fuyu Island. Only 27 years old and already at the mid-stage transcendent realm. Lin Qingrong explained to Duan Lingtian. 27. Mid-stage transcendent realm? Duan Lingtian looked at Guo Li, stunned. He'd never imagined this rather attractive young woman was actually at the mid-stage transcendent realm. Most importantly, she was 8 full years younger than he was. Truly a genius. Duan Lingtian praised. He had thought himself a top-tier genius on Yunxiao continent, only to arrive here and discover there truly are heavens beyond heavens, people beyond people. He was 35 and still only at the early stage of mortal shedding realm. Guo Li, meanwhile, was 27 and already at the mid-stage transcendent realm. The gap was enormous. Duan Lingtian, stop teasing me. Compared with you, what am I worth? Guo Li said with a bitter smile. Aren't you the one teasing me? Duan Lingtian also smiled bitterly. I'm a full 8 years older than you. Yet my cultivation is so low, standing before you. I just want to dig a hole and hide inside. Duan Lingtian's words made Guo Li laugh. Duan Lingtian, are you really unaware or just pretending? What? Duan Lingtian was startled. The cultivation environment in your mortal continent simply can't compare with our Dao martial holy land. And cultivation resources are far inferior too. Guo Li explained. In the Dao martial holy land, 27-year-old martial cultivators at the early stage of mortal shedding realm are countless. In the mortal continent where you come from, there probably aren't many people like you, right? She asked at the end. Martial cultivators at the early stage of mortal shedding realm your age are countless. Duan Lingtian was shocked. He had long heard Xuanai say that martial cultivators and Dao cultivators in the Dao martial holy land advanced quickly, but he hadn't imagined it was this exaggerated. 27-year-old early-stage mortal shedding realm experts everywhere? Guo Li is being modest. In the Dao martial holy land, martial cultivators like her are indeed numerous. But the Dao martial holy land is vast. Within the territory governed by our Qiushan city, she's already a rare genius martial cultivator. Lin Qingrong said. At the same time, he glanced at Yi-Man beside him and added, On Fuyu Island, Guo Li is the strongest of the younger generation. Yi-Man ranks second. Duan Lingtian nodded. It seemed Lin Qingrong had taken the 2 strongest youths of Fuyu Island away in one go. Yi-Man is also a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator, 29 years old this year. Guo Li added at the right moment. Although he looked down on Yi-Man's character, Duan Lingtian was still somewhat surprised by his martial talent and gave him an extra glance. A 29-year-old mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator was quite impressive. Recalling his former Yunxiao continent, almost no one of the same cultivation level was younger than him, let alone surpassed him in cultivation. But here, outside the Dao martial holy land, and before even entering it, he had already met 2 people whose cultivation surpassed his and who were younger than him. He couldn't help sighing inwardly. Duan Lingtian, you've just arrived at the Dao martial holy land and presumably have nowhere to stay. Why not come back to Qiushan City with me? Our Qiushan City welcomes genius martial cultivators like you most of all. Lin Qingrong looked at Duan Lingtian and extended the invitation on his own initiative. Guoli was momentarily surprised by Lin Qingrong's invitation to Duan Lingtian, but quickly understood. A genius martial cultivator like Duan Lingtian was naturally someone Lin Qingrong, a key subordinate of the city lord of Qiushan City, wouldn't let slip away. Coming from the mortal continent and single-handedly slaying over 100 spectral armored beasts, in her eyes, Duan Lingtian had to be a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator like herself. Although Duan Lingtian was older at 35, he was a native of the mortal continent. In the Dao martial Holy Land, people with talent like hers weren't exactly common, but there were quite a few. But someone like Duan Lingtian was extremely rare. At the very least, she had never heard of one. When Yi Man heard Lin Qingrong invite Duan Lingtian, his face changed dramatically, and his gaze toward Duan Lingtian grew even colder. Senior Lin, I can accept your invitation, but in 2 years I'll probably need to go home once. If I join Qiushan City, will I have that freedom? Duan Lingtian pondered for a moment and asked. No matter what, he had to return in 2 years. By then, his 2 fiancées would likely be giving birth. You can rest easy. After joining Qiushan City, you can go home to visit family at any time. You just need to report it in advance. Though 2 years is still far off, I approve your request now, Lin Qingrong said with a smile. In his eyes, Duan Lingtian alone was worth more than Guoli and Yi Man combined. Although Duan Lingtian was 35 and only at the mid-stage transcendent realm, he was from the mortal continent, and to possess such cultivation at this age made him a genius among geniuses, a prodigy among prodigies, not something Guoli and Yi Man could compare with. Clearly, Lin Qingrong also assumed Duan Lingtian was a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator. After all, the combat strength Duan Lingtian had displayed earlier was far beyond what an early-stage mortal shedding realm martial cultivator could achieve. Thank you, Senior Lin. Duan Lingtian quickly expressed his gratitude, feeling relieved inside. In the Dao martial Holy Land, he was a newcomer and truly needed a place to settle. Everything else could wait until after he had established himself here. Moreover, this Senior Lin before him had saved his life. Whether in terms of reason or emotion, he had no reason to refuse Senior Lin's invitation. Guoli took the initiative to congratulate Duan Lingtian. By joining the Qiushan City Lord's Mansion, you've essentially established a foundation in the Dao martial Holy Land. With this foundation, your path ahead will be much easier. Thank you. Facing Guoli's congratulations, Duan Lingtian quickly expressed his thanks. Humph. Nearby, Yi Man let out a low snort, clearly dissatisfied that Duan Lingtian was also joining the Qiushan City Lord's Mansion. Yi Man. At this moment, Lin Qingrong looked at Yi Man. Senior Lin. In front of Lin Qingrong, Yi Man was servile and submissive, a completely different person from before. Go back. Lin Qingrong spoke in a calm tone. What? Yi Man clearly didn't understand Lin Qingrong's words. I'm telling you to go back to Fuyu Island. I came to Fuyu Island this time to recruit genius martial cultivators and Dao cultivators, and I only have 2 spots. This time, Lin Qingrong made it clear. Only 2 spots. Guoli was startled, clearly just finding this out as well. This time, Yi Man finally heard clearly. Lin Qingrong's meaning was very obvious. I only have 2 spots, which were originally meant for you and Guoli. However, now that Duan Lingtian has joined and you are weaker than Guoli, you are no longer needed. You can go home. On what grounds? Yi Man's face was unsightly. After glancing at Lin Qingrong, he looked at Duan Lingtian with a grim gaze and said in a heavy voice, Guoli is stronger than me, so I accept her taking 1 spot. But this Duan Lingtian on what grounds? Although his performance just now was decent, I could have done what he did. Why give the other spot to him, and not to me? As Yi Man finished speaking, his face was filled with unwillingness and resentment. What? Do you want to compete with Duan Lingtian? Lin Qingrong's eyes narrowed, a sharp light flashing through them as he asked with interest. Exactly, unless he defeats me. Otherwise, I won't accept it. I won't accept it. By the time Yi Man finished his words, he was shouting, Duan Lingtian, are you willing to compete with him? If you are, then fight him. If not, then ignore him. I have the final say over the spots in my hands. Lin Qingrong looked at Duan Lingtian and asked with a smile. When facing Duan Lingtian, the smile on his face never ceased. In his eyes, Duan Lingtian was a treasure he had found, having just arrived at the Dao martial Holy Land. With a cultivation at the mid-stage transcendent realm, and being only 35 years old. Such a genius could even be compared to the most beloved disciple of the city, Lord of Choshan City. Hearing Lin Qingrong's words, Yi Man's expression became increasingly gloomy. Lin Qingrong's words were undoubtedly telling him, regardless of whether Duan Lingtian accepted his challenge today, he would not be taken to Choshan City. Immediately, Yi Man's chest filled with a rage that was about to burst out. Duan Lingtian, if you don't dare to accept the challenge, you're a coward. You're a piece of trash, garbage. In his fury, Yi Man roared at Duan Lingtian like he had gone mad. Truly a mad dog. Just as Yi Man's voice fell, a cold light flashed in Duan Lingtian's eyes as he stepped out into the air. Since you want to challenge me, I naturally have no reason to refuse. Good, good. Seeing Duan Lingtian accept the challenge, Yi Man excitedly stepped out into the air as well, standing in opposition to Duan Lingtian. Duan Lingtian, I will use my strength to show Senior Lin that you are not as good as me. At some point, a blade had appeared in Yi Man's hand, a crescent-shaped blade that emitted waves of intimidating aura, giving Duan Lingtian a feeling that was both strange and familiar. An Emperor-grade spirit artifact? No, it should be called a human-rank medium-grade sacred artifact. Seeing Yi Man take out a sacred artifact, Duan Lingtian didn't dare to be overconfident and immediately took out the sun-shooting bow. After all, he was only a martial cultivator at the early stage of mortal shedding realm, while Yi Man was a martial cultivator at the mid-stage transcendent realm. What a pity, my arrows are all gone. Thinking about how his last arrow had fallen into the vast sea area along with the savage beast killed by Lin Qingrong, Duan Lingtian sighed inwardly. However, even without arrows, defeating this Yi Man is more than enough. Duan Lingtian thought to himself. Duan Lingtian, Yi Man is a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator who has opened 13 sacred meridians. In the future, when he reaches the great perfection of the mortal transformation realm, he will be able to open at least 40 sacred meridians. Suddenly, a familiar voice entered Duan Lingtian's ears, reminding him, he has the aptitude to break through to the Saint Entry realm. 13 sacred meridians, opening at least 40 sacred meridians, has the aptitude to break through to the Saint Entry realm. Hearing Guo Li's true Qi voice transmission, Duan Lingtian almost couldn't help but laugh out loud. At the mid-stage transcendent realm, he only opened 13 sacred meridians. One must know that he was only at the early stage of mortal shedding realm and had already opened 15 sacred meridians. However, because the Qi Ci of a mid-stage transcendent realm was larger than his, in terms of true Qi alone, he was not Yi Man's match. As the second strongest of the younger generation on Fuyu Island in the Dao martial Holy Land, the Saint-grade martial arts Yi Man cultivated probably wouldn't be weak, and should at least be stronger than his. After all, he had only started coming into contact with Saint-grade martial arts in the last 2 or 3 years. His confidence came from the sun-shooting bow in his hand and his powerful physical body. Previously, in his battle with that ghost shell beast, he didn't use true Qi, the sun-shooting bow, or Saint-grade martial arts. That alone was enough to prove the strength of his physical power. His current body was even stronger than the original form of an early stage of mortal shedding realm 5-clawed divine dragon. To deal with you, I only need one strike to send you on your way. Yi Man swept a contemptuous glance at Duan Lingtian. As soon as his voice fell, he vanished from his spot, seemingly turning into a gust of wind as he floated before Duan Lingtian in the blink of an eye. His speed was only slightly slower than Duan Lingtian's at full speed. The true Qi of the mid-stage transcendent realm is indeed impressive. Seeing Yi Man appear before him, Duan Lingtian praised inwardly. The speed Yi Man was displaying now was not much slower than his when performing body follows the arrow. Die. Appearing before Duan Lingtian and seeing that Duan Lingtian seemed frozen with fear and had no intention of dodging, Yi Man showed a mocking smile and let out a fierce shout as the blade in his hand quickly swept out. As the blade struck, a crescent-shaped sharp light whistled out, emitting waves of icy aura. The speed of the blade was far greater than Yi Man's own speed. What a fast blade! Facing Yi Man's rapidly approaching strike, Duan Lingtian was startled. He was certain this was a Saint-grade martial arts blade technique, because ordinary blade techniques couldn't be this fast. Duan Lingtian's expression tightened, and his hand quickly moved to the string of the sun-shooting bow. Duan Lingtian, Seeing Yi-Man's blade sweep out from afar, while Duan Lingtian still hadn't dodged, Guoli's face changed drastically. One must know that even she wouldn't dare to be so overconfident when facing this strike from Yi-Man. On the other hand, Lin Qingrong watched the scene with a calm expression, seemingly not worried at all. In fact, back when Duan Lingtian shot and blinded the late profound-level savage beast, he had seen that Duan Lingtian's strength was very high, not only stronger than Yi-Man, but even stronger than Guoli. Because of this, he wasn't worried at all about Yi-Man challenging Duan Lingtian. Buzz, accompanied by a harsh and muffled loud noise. The moment Duan Lingtian's hand released the sun-shooting bow string, a blade of true qi light shot out. Meeting the blade, Yi-Man had swung. Compared to the solid true qi on the blade in Yi-Man's hand, this blade of true qi light was quite inconspicuous, as if it didn't belong to a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator's true qi at all. However, it was this inconspicuous blade of true qi light that was even faster than the blade in Yi-Man's hand, and the power it contained seemed very strong, because when it touched the blade in Yi-Man's hand, it sent it flying. Not only that, but Yi-Man himself was also sent flying. He only managed to steady himself after spitting out several mouthfuls of blood. Superior person, you lost. Duan Lingtian glanced at Yi-Man indifferently and spoke in a calm tone. Duan Lingtian's words made Yi-Man so angry that he spat out another mouthful of blood. If Duan Lingtian had lost and said, "Superior person, you won," to him, he would certainly have been very proud. But the problem was that he had now lost, defeated by the inferior person in his eyes. Let's go. Lin Qingrong didn't look at Yi-Man again. After calling out to Duan Lingtian and Guoli, he was the first to take to the air and fly off. Duan Lingtian gave Yi-Man a mocking glance before turning to follow Lin Qingrong. "Yi-Man, you should go back. The Qiushan City Lord's mansion recruits every 5 years. You're still young and still have a chance." Since she was an acquaintance of Yi-Man, Guoli looked at him and advised. However, Yi-Man didn't seem to hear her. He just stood there, staring blankly at Duan Lingtian's back, as if he hadn't yet emerged from the shadow of being defeated by Duan Lingtian. Seeing this, Guoli sighed, and then turned to follow Duan Lingtian and Lin Qingrong. "Duan Lingtian, I won't let you off. I will absolutely not let you off." After Duan Lingtian and the others had flown some distance away, Yi-Man snapped out of it, his eyes shooting out a venomous gaze that was both fierce and cold. "Qiushan City, Lin Qingrong, I will definitely make you regret this. I will definitely make you regret this." No matter how hysterical Yi-Man became, Duan Lingtian and the other two could no longer see him. "Duan Lingtian, when you defeated Yi-Man just now, you didn't seem to use much true qi." On the way, Lin Qingrong looked at Duan Lingtian. "I did my best." Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly. At this moment, he also realized that Lin Qingrong might have mistaken him for a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator. For a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator, the amount of true qi he had used would indeed have been holding back. But the problem was, he was an early stage of mortal shedding realm martial cultivator. His qi was only the size of a pigeon's egg, whereas a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator's qi was said to be the size of a chicken's egg. With the same true qi but different capacities, how could they compare? Moreover, the true qi inside his pigeon egg-sized qi wasn't even full yet. However, the day his true qi became full would also be the day he charged toward the mid-stage transcendent realm. "Did your best." Hearing Duan Lingtian's words, Lin Qingrong shook his head, thinking Duan Lingtian was just being modest. Along the way, Duan Lingtian gained some understanding of Qiushan City. Qiushan City is a large city located on the coast west of the Dao Martial Holy Land, under the jurisdiction of a powerful sect. The surrounding areas of Qiushan City are all governed by Qiushan City. This includes Fuyu Town, which is Guoli's hometown, Fuyu Island. "Duan Lingtian, is your mortal continent fun?" On the way, Guoli eagerly asked Duan Lingtian about various matters concerning the mortal continent. After learning that Duan Lingtian's strength was unparalleled throughout the mortal continent, she was also filled with longing for the mortal continent. "Your mortal continent is much more fun than our Dao Martial Holy Land. Just look at me. I've never left the surrounding areas of Qiushan City my whole life," Guoli said with some disappointment. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, experts are as numerous as clouds. Transcendent realm cultivators are everywhere, and Saint Entry Realm cultivators are as common as dogs. Because of this, mere transcendent realm existences dare not wander around easily. If they are unlucky, they will be killed. And once a person dies, everything is gone. Each has its own advantages, I suppose. Duan Lingtian smiled. For example, in our Yinshao continent, I haven't met anyone whose strength is comparable to mine and who is younger than me. You are only 27 years old and already a mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator, which is unimaginable in our Yinshao continent. That's because the cultivation environment is different. I heard that your mortal continent doesn't have Saint Stone mines. Guoli asked. Duan Lingtian nodded. That's right. Do you know that even our Fuyu town has 3 Saint Stone mines? Our Gua family occupies one of them. The Yi family, where Yi Man belongs, occupies another, and another family also occupies one. Guoli said, families like our 3 major families in Fuyu town, when placed in the Dao martial Holy Land, are merely forces that barely make it into the ranks. Ninth-rate force. Ninth-rate force. Duan Lingtian was speechless upon hearing this. Such a weak force actually has Saint Stone mines? Doesn't anyone try to seize your family's Saint Stone mines? Duan Lingtian asked. There's nothing worth seizing. The 3 Saint Stone mines in our Fuyu town are just 9th-grade Saint Stone mines. They usually produce 9th-grade Saint Stones, and only occasionally, with good luck, can an 8th-grade Saint Stone be found. Guoli said. Duan Lingtian had heard Xuanai mention that Saint Stones are divided into grades before. Saint Stones are divided into 9 grades in total. 9th grade is the lowest, and 1st grade is the highest. 1 1st-grade Saint Stone is equivalent to 10 2nd-grade Saint Stones, 100 3rd-grade Saint Stones, or 1,000 4th-grade Saint Stones, and so on. 9th-grade Saint Stones are the worst Saint Stones. The Saint Stones found in the supreme grade Yuan Stones mines of the 2 ancient families on Yinshao continent, and the Saint Stones found in the supreme grade Yuan Stones mines of the 4 overseas Holy Islands, are all just 9th-grade Saint Stones. However, the Saint Stones Xuanai gave him were all of a relatively high grade. Gradually, Duan Lingtian also learned some information about the Dao Martial Holy Land from Guoli. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, forces without a great perfection of the mortal transformation realm expert are considered unranked forces. While the 3 major families in Fuyu town, where Guoli belongs, each have a great perfection of the mortal transformation realm expert, they are only 9th-rate forces because they lack a Saint Entry realm expert. Have your 3 major families never produced a Saint Entry realm expert? Duan Lingtian asked in confusion. Very rarely. Guoli said, Don't look at me and Yi Man. We both have the potential to break through to the Saint Entry realm, but it's not certain whether we can successfully break through to the Saint Entry realm. Not to mention, among our 3 major families in Fuyu town, none would allow the emergence of a Saint Entry realm existence within their own family. I'm 27 years old and have experienced no less than 100 assassination attempts from the other 2 families. At this point, Guoli sighed, seemingly a bit tired. Yi Man is the same as me. Because of this, when we heard there was an opportunity to join the Qiushan City Lord's mansion, both I and Yi Man were eager. But it's a pity. Guoli didn't finish her sentence, but Duan Lingtian knew she was referring to Yi Man's unfortunate situation. In some ways, Guoli and Yi Man had a mutual appreciation for each other. Now that you've joined Qiushan City, you should be able to successfully break through to the Saint Entry realm. Duan Lingtian smiled. However, Guoli shook her head. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, there are many people with the talent to break through to the Saint Entry realm, but only 1/10 of them can truly successfully break through to the Saint Entry realm, which is considered good. Not to mention, for those with the talent to break through to the Saint Entry realm, the path to breakthrough is arduous. The dangers encountered during this process are enough to cause many to perish prematurely. Guoli's words revealed a hint of desolation. As Duan Lingtian realized this, his heart sank, and he suddenly understood the cruelty of the Dao Martial Holy Land. In the Dao Martial Holy Land, to survive well, you must have sufficiently hard fists. At this moment, Lin Xingrong also said to Duan Lingtian, having a strong fist is the ultimate truth. The Dao Martial Holy Land, where the strong prey on the weak, was even more severe than the mortal continent. Elder Hua, do you have any mental energy secret arts that can detect others' ages? Unconsciously, Duan Lingtian recalled how Yi Man had previously detected his age and couldn't help but ask Elder Hua in the Seven Treasures Exquisite Pagoda. In his opinion, Elder Hua, having lived for so long, should possess such a secret art. A mental energy secret art to detect others' ages is just a low-level trinket. If you want to learn it, I'll immediately transmit a superior secret art to you. It's a secret art that won't be detected as long as you're not trying to detect someone whose cultivation is a major realm higher than yours. Elder Hua said, a secret art that won't be detected as long as you're not trying to detect someone whose cultivation is a major realm higher than yours. Hearing Elder Hua's words, Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up, and he looked expectant. Elder Hua, quickly transmit it to me. The secret art I'm transmitting to you is called Heavenly Eye Vision. Later, when you open up this sacred meridian connecting your eyes, its abilities will become even stronger. As Elder Hua's voice came, Duan Lingtian found that many pieces of information related to Heavenly Eye Vision had appeared in his mind. Heavenly Eye Vision is an auxiliary secret art. Its main function is to detect others' cultivation and age. Anyone who can project mental energy can easily master it. It only took half an hour for Duan Lingtian to completely master Heavenly Eye Vision. After mastering it, he naturally had to test it out. His first target was Guoli. Duan Lingtian looked at Guoli, his eyes narrowed, and his mental energy silently extended from his eyes, appearing around Guoli's body in a flash, but without touching her. At this moment, Duan Lingtian's vision flickered. After deciding to first detect Guoli's age, he found that circles of patterns had appeared on Guoli's body. Come here. Why does she have patterns on her body? Duan Lingtian asked in confusion. Trees have annual rings, and people have annual rings too. What you are seeing now are human annual rings. Elder Hua responded. Human annual rings? Upon hearing this, Duan Lingtian began counting the annual rings on Guoli's body. He quickly discovered that there were a total of 27 rings on Guoli's body. Guoli was 27 years old. How truly amazing! Duan Lingtian couldn't help but exclaim in his heart. Guoli never noticed anything from beginning to end. Immediately after, Duan Lingtian also detected Guoli's cultivation. Transcendent Realm, 2nd level. I wonder if Senior Lin is a Saint Entry Realm existence. If so, if I rashly investigate him, he will definitely discover it. Duan Lingtian glanced at Lin Xingrong, feeling a bit conflicted. Never mind. Finally, unable to suppress his curiosity, Duan Lingtian began to investigate Lin Xingrong. The first thing he investigated was his cultivation. Great perfection of the mortal transformation realm. After detecting Lin Xingrong's cultivation, Duan Lingtian breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, the other party was not in the Saint Entry realm. Otherwise, he would definitely have been discovered. Senior Lin's age. Immediately after, he began to detect Lin Xingrong's age, a total of 58 rings. Senior Lin is 58 years old this year. Soon, Duan Lingtian also detected Lin Xingrong's age. Ahead is the Dao Martial Holy Land. Suddenly, Lin Xingrong spoke to remind them. Duan Lingtian looked forward upon hearing this, only to find a vast expanse of land appearing beyond the distant sea horizon. This is the Dao Martial Holy Land? He was about to step onto the Dao Martial Holy Land, and it had to be said that Duan Lingtian felt a little excited. After landing on the Dao Martial Holy Land and traveling for another half an hour, we'll reach Qiushan City. Lin Xingrong continued. Duan Lingtian nodded. Soon, the three of them landed on the Dao Martial Holy Land. The vast coastal area of the Dao Martial Holy Land was filled with lush greenery, and the air in the sky was fresh. Half an hour later, a small black appeared in Duan Lingtian's vision. That's Qiushan City ahead. Hearing Guoli's reminder, Duan Lingtian's eyes narrowed. At the same time, the black in the distance continuously grew larger within his line of sight, and before long, it transformed into a magnificent and vast city. This city was incredibly large. At the very least, Duan Lingtian had never seen such a large city on the Yunxiao continent. Qiushan City. Seen from afar, Qiushan City resembled a massive beast, opening its gaping maw to swallow vehicles and pedestrians. From a distance, it exuded a strong sense of oppression. Why isn't anyone flying in? Soon, Duan Lingtian discovered this problem. Above Qiushan City, a no-fly formation covering the entire city has been set up. It's a Dao formation arranged by a powerful Dao cultivator. As long as the formation is activated, martial cultivators and Dao cultivators below the Saint Entry realm cannot fly within the city. Hearing Duan Lingtian's question, Lin Qingrong patiently explained. So that's how it is. Duan Lingtian suddenly understood. Soon, the three of them landed outside Qiushan City. Just as Duan Lingtian was about to walk into the city, he saw Lin Qingrong raise his hand and take out a carriage. This was a four-wheeled carriage, and Duan Lingtian had seen many such carriages entering the city before. However, the carriage Lin Qingrong took out was even more luxurious. Get in. After greeting Duan Lingtian and the other, Lin Qingrong was the first to get into the carriage. Guoli didn't seem surprised and followed suit. Duan Lingtian was the last to get in. Upon entering the carriage, he found that it was like two carriage compartments combined, only missing the horses it should have. Just as Duan Lingtian wondered how the carriage would move, Lin Qingrong's voice came at the right time. Sit tight. As soon as Lin Qingrong finished speaking, the entire carriage started to move. Duan Lingtian noticed that Lin Qingrong's hand, casually placed on a wooden table inside the carriage, was shimmering with a deep luster. He was actually controlling the carriage forward with his true qi. Is this the means of a perfection stage mortal shedding realm expert? To be able to control true qi to such an extent. Seeing this, Duan Lingtian was secretly astonished. Along the way, through the window, Duan Lingtian could see a bustling flow of traffic. Out of boredom, Duan Lingtian activated his heavenly eye transmit and casually looked outside. He didn't miss anyone on the road, except for the people inside other carriages. Soon, he discovered that most of the people in the city were at the mortal realm stage, while those in the mortal shedding realm were relatively few. The strongest were merely at the mid-stage mortal shedding realm. Furthermore, the architecture and market scale in Qiushan City were incomparable to any city on Cloud Continent, which greatly broadened Duan Lingtian's horizons and made him feel that this trip was well worth it. The carriage Duan Lingtian was in moved forward, and whenever it reached a crowded place, pedestrians would make way, looking at their carriage with awe. It was as if they knew that the people inside this carriage were not ordinary. After entering the depths of Qiushan City, the luxurious four-wheeled carriage controlled by Lin Qingrong finally stopped steadily in front of a spacious and opulent mansion. Could this be the city lord's mansion of Qiushan City? Duan Lingtian secretly wondered. The mansion in front of him, just its main gate, could simultaneously accommodate several carriages like the one he was currently in, entering side by side. It was very spacious. What surprised Duan Lingtian even more was that the armored guards at the mansion's entrance, upon his heavenly eye transmit investigation, were all uniformly at the mid-stage mortal shedding realm. Mid-stage mortal shedding realm cultivators are merely gate guards at this mansion. This city must undoubtedly be the city lord's mansion of Qiushan City. Duan Lingtian was completely certain, even though he was well-traveled on Cloud Continent. Coming here made him feel like a country bumpkin. Any mid-stage mortal shedding realm cultivator could sweep across the entire Cloud Continent and even the 4 major overseas sacred islands. Yet, such a being was merely a gatekeeper here. My current cultivation is not even as good as a gatekeeper's. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly to himself. This is the city lord's mansion of our Qiushan City. The city lord's mansion is the place with the highest authority in the entire Qiushan City. Inside the carriage, Lin Qingrong looked at Duan Lingtian and Guoli, reminding them, "Once we go in, I will hand you two over to the Hidden Dragon Camp. That is where the city lord's mansion trains geniuses." Hidden Dragon Camp? Duan Lingtian and Guoli's eyes lit up simultaneously upon hearing this. Soon, Lin Qingrong continued to control the four-wheeled carriage forward, heading into the city lord's mansion. As they passed the main gate, the guards at the entrance bowed respectfully, clearly recognizing Lin Qingrong's carriage. After entering the city lord's mansion, Duan Lingtian realized that it was incredibly vast, ridiculously large. It was even larger than the imperial palaces on Cloud Continent. Along the way, Duan Lingtian's heavenly eye transmit never stopped. He noticed that almost everyone passing by the carriage was at least at the mortal shedding realm. He even saw a few individuals with cultivation at the late-stage mortal shedding realm. Not long after, Lin Qingrong stopped the carriage and motioned for Duan Lingtian and Guoli to get out. Immediately after, he led Duan Lingtian and Guoli towards the bamboo forest ahead. After passing through the bamboo forest, they walked onto a pedestrian path paved with bluestones. There were no people on the path for now. After navigating through several paths, Lin Qingrong led Duan Lingtian and Guoli into a vast courtyard deep within Qiushan Mansion. Before even entering the courtyard, Duan Ling Tian and Guo Li couldn't help but wrinkle their noses. It was simply because they smelled a foul odor emanating from within. This stench was clearly the smell of feces and urine. What the hell is this place? Duan Ling Tian and Guo Li exchanged glances, both seeing a bad feeling in each other's eyes. This seemed to be the very end of the city lord's mansion. Could this be the hidden dragon camp inside? Thinking of this, they didn't dare to imagine further. Smelling the constant stench of feces and urine, Duan Ling Tian and Guo Li frowned and followed Lin Qingrong into the courtyard. Inside the large courtyard, a stretch of rugged wasteland met their eyes. Such a place appearing within the city lord's mansion of Choshan City seemed somewhat out of place, almost like another world. Duan Ling Tian gazed forward, only to find dilapidated wooden huts built upon this barren land, as if in danger of collapsing at any moment. Behind these wooden huts stood a high platform, with 13 more wooden huts on it. However, those 13 huts were brand new, and one could tell the environment inside was good at a glance. Most importantly, Duan Ling Tian discovered the source of the stench of feces and urine. Below the high platform was a narrow septic tank, piled high with excrement, which made one feel nauseous just looking at it. However, Duan Ling Tian was fine. His past life as a special forces soldier and mercenary allowed him to quickly adapt to all harsh environments. But Guo Li was different. She was already nauseated and starting to vomit. This is the City Lord's Mansion's hidden dragon camp. It was personally established by the City Lord back then and is the place for cultivating talented individuals. This is also where you two will be staying. Lin Qingrong seemed not to notice Guo Li's reaction and introduced it to her and Duan Ling Tian on his own. Duan Ling Tian smiled bitterly. Guo Li, on the other hand, turned pale and vomited even more violently. Hidden Dragon Camp? This was the hellish place she would have to stay in from now on. At this moment, Guo Li even had the impulse to turn around and leave. However, as soon as she thought that if she gave up this opportunity and returned to Fuyu Town, she might be assassinated by the other two major families at any time, she dismissed that idea. Duan Ling Tian was still surveying the surrounding environment. He noticed that besides the dilapidated wooden huts on the rugged wasteland and the brand new wooden huts on the high platform, there was also a towering pavilion on one side of the high platform. Haha, Qingrong, you're back too? Along with a hearty laugh, Duan Ling Tian saw an elderly man walking from the other side. Behind him were two young men. The two young men's brows were furrowed, and their hands were pinching their noses, clearly disgusted by the environment here as well. Elder Lu, seeing the old man, Lin Qingrong quickly responded with a smile, greeting him in a familiar manner. What, are these the two geniuses you brought back from Fuyu Town? Soon, the old man's gaze fell on Duan Ling Tian and Guo Li. His eyes narrowed, and he asked with a smile. The old man's gaze seemed casual, but when it landed on Duan Ling Tian, it still gave him a feeling of being pricked in the back. This made him instinctively use his heavenly eye transmit. He discovered that this old man, like Lin Qingrong, was a perfection stage mortal shedding realm cultivator. He was also the second perfection stage mortal shedding realm cultivator Duan Ling Tian had seen since arriving at the Dao Martial Saint Land, a being whose strength was no less than Lin Qingrong's. Guo Li, what rank force is this city lord's mansion in Choshan City considered? Duan Ling Tian couldn't help but ask Guo Li via true qi transmission. At this moment, Guo Li had also recovered a bit. Upon hearing Duan Ling Tian's words, she replied via true qi transmission. The Choshan City Lord's Mansion is considered an 8th rank force in the Dao Martial Saint Land. 8th rank forces generally have Saint Realm powerhouses guarding them. For example, the City Lord of this Choshan City Lord's Mansion is a Saint Realm existence. Senior Lin is a perfection stage mortal shedding realm existence. Guo Li said. Additionally, the Choshan City Lord's Mansion also controls an 8th grade Saint Stone mine. Her name is Guo Li, and she is a genius I brought back from the Guo family in Fuyu Town. Don't let her being a mere woman deceive you. Among the younger generation in Fuyu Town, she ranks first. Lin Qingrong smiled as he introduced Guo Li to the old man, then looked at Duan Ling Tian, his smile widening. As for him, I met him on the way. His name is Duan Ling Tian, and he comes from the Mortal Continent. Mortal Continent. Hearing Lin Qingrong's words, the old man was surprised, and even the two young men behind him now looked at Duan Ling Tian a few more times. Qingrong, someone you brought back? and from the mortal continent. He must be extraordinary, right? It seems you'll be getting a lot of rewards from the city lord this time, the old man said with an envious look. Immediately after, he began to introduce the two young men following behind him. He first introduced the young man in blue. His name is Hujia. He is the genius I found this time from Fenyu Town. He is 28 years old this year, and his cultivation is at the mid-stage mortal shedding realm. The other one is named Zhu Lang, also a genius from Fenyu Town. He is 29 years old this year, and his cultivation is also at the mid-stage mortal shedding realm. Soon, the old man looked at the other young man in green. When the old man introduced the two young men, he had a hint of pride on his face. Not only did he state their ages, but he also mentioned their cultivation, under 30 years old, and at the mid-stage mortal shedding realm. Such individuals were top-tier geniuses, even in the surrounding areas of Qiushan City. Behind the old man, the two young men, Hu Jie and Zhu Lang, who had been pinching their noses and frowning, also followed suit after seeing Guo Li release her hand from her nose and her brows relax. Although they still found this place disgusting and felt an urge to turn around and leave immediately, they still endured it. They were both unwilling to lose face in front of a beauty like Guo Li. I can only bring you this far. The old man glanced at Hu Jie and Zhu Lang, saying indifferently, in the hidden dragon camp, cultivate diligently. If you can become one of the 13 protectors, the future benefits will not be few. Qingrong, shall we go together? Just as Duan Lingtian and Guo Li, among others, were still unaware of what the 13 protectors mentioned by the old man referred to, the old man looked towards Lin Qingrong again, the indifference on his face vanishing, replaced by a smile. Lin Qingrong nodded slightly at the old man, then turned with a serious expression towards Duan Lingtian and the other, Duan Lingtian. Guo Li, what Elder Lu said to Hu Jie and the others is what I want to say to you as well. Perform well and strive to become one of the 13 protectors. After speaking, without waiting for Duan Lingtian and Guo Li to react, Lin Qingrong and the old man simultaneously glanced towards the pavilion at the side of the high platform, then turned and walked away side by side. They came in a hurry and left in a hurry, whether it was Guo Li, Hu Jie, or Zhu Lang. After Lin Qingrong and the old man departed, their brows furrowed once more, their expressions extremely grim, only because the stench was truly unbearable. Only Duan Lingtian remained completely calm, seemingly having adapted to this foul-smelling environment. Hey, Duan Lingtian, right? Don't you find it stinks here? Zhu Lang, living up to the Lang, reckless/wave, in his name, was like a natural extrovert. He took the initiative to greet Duan Lingtian, asking him, so what if it stinks? Don't we still have to stay here? Duan Lingtian shook his head, then walked directly into the hidden dragon camp, heading towards the area of dilapidated wooden huts in the wasteland. That place was the closest to the cesspit. The stench became even more foul, even more unbearable, enough to make people hesitate and hold back. Guo Li gritted her teeth and followed Duan Lingtian. Hu Jie and Zhu Lang exchanged a glance, seeing helplessness in each other's eyes, then also followed along. Not long after, the four of them arrived at the area of dilapidated wooden huts. Here, they could see many youths like themselves. These youths looked about the same age as them. Duan Lingtian scanned them with his heavenly eye vision and found most were between 20 and 30 years old. There were also some over 30, but the oldest among them did not exceed 37. It seems that in this hidden dragon camp, I can be considered elderly. Duan Lingtian smiled bitterly in his heart. Although he knew this was because he came from the mortal continent, Duan Lingtian still felt somewhat uncomfortable deep down, a subconscious feeling. 21 years old, early stage of mortal shedding realm. Duan Lingtian discovered that even the youngest-looking youth here had a cultivation base at the early stage of mortal shedding realm, the same as him. As for the rest, the weakest were also at the early stage of mortal shedding realm, with some at mid-stage transcendent realm. However, he indeed could not see anyone at the late profound level. Are these the geniuses of the Dao martial Holy Land? Duan Lingtian murmured inwardly. A 21-year-old at the early stage of mortal shedding realm gave Duan Lingtian a tremendous shock. Thinking back to when he was 21, he hadn't even left the Great Han Dynasty yet, let alone his cultivation level, which was simply incomparable to the other parties. The cultivation environment in the Dao martial Holy Land is truly exaggerated. Duan Lingtian couldn't help but feel secretly astonished. unlike Guo Li and the other two who followed behind Duan Lingtian. These youths were scattered around the dilapidated wooden huts, standing there as if already accustomed to the environment here. Newcomers have arrived. These youths, both male and female, watched as Duan Lingtian and the others approached, looking at them with great interest. Of course, more gazes fell upon Guo Li, Hu Jie, and Zhu Lang, whose brows were tightly furrowed. Especially Guo Li, who attracted many fervent gazes. Guo Li was naturally beautiful, pure and refined, standing out like a crane among chickens, even among the young women here. Thus, wherever she stood, she became the focus of attention, making it hard for people to look away. What a beauty! Immediately, many people's eyes lit up, accompanied by low exclamations. More people emerged from inside the dilapidated huts, coming out to gaze at Guo Li without restraint. Their gazes were like those of rutting male wolves. This made Guo Li's expression turn rather unpleasant as well. Seeming to notice Guo Li's displeased expression, Duan Lingtian slowed his pace, allowing Guo Li to follow closely behind him, using his own body to block many of those gazes. Thank you. Understanding Duan Lingtian's intention, Guo Li softly expressed her gratitude. Hu Jie and Zhu Lang, seeing Duan Lingtian's seemingly casual action earn the beauty's thanks, exchanged a glance, imitated him, quickened their steps, and walked side by side with Duan Lingtian. Now, the three of them blocked all gazes directed at Guo Li. Immediately, those fervent gazes changed, turning into hostility. Those bitingly hateful stares seemed to wish they could drag Duan Lingtian and the other two out for a beating. And they call themselves geniuses from various regions around Qiushan City. With this kind of conduct? Hu Jie snorted lowly, disdainfully. Those who came to the Hidden Dragon Camp were all people who wanted to change their own destinies. In the regions around Qiushan City, they were backed either by ninth-rate forces or forces not even on the ranking. If not through the Qiushan City Lord's mansion, they would never rise up in their lifetimes, and might even be eliminated someday. The City Lord of Qiushan City had a fondness for nurturing talent, establishing the Hidden Dragon Camp. While adding fresh blood to the City Lord's mansion, it also paved a soaring path for many. Here, they could change their fate, even rise to great heights in a single leap. Do we really have to live here? Approaching a cluster of dilapidated wooden huts, Hu Jie's expression was extremely grim. But when he saw the various youths emerging from the huts, he knew he had no choice but to stay here. Guo Li and Zhu Lang's expressions were also very unpleasant. The huts on the outside are all occupied? Only the huts near the cesspit are available. Soon, Duan Lingtian discovered this point. Those who arrived earlier had already occupied the outer huts. Although the environment was the same, the stench outside was definitely somewhat fainter. Damn, not a single outer hut left. After discovering this, Zhu Lang couldn't help but curse. If you want an outer hut, you can defeat the hut's owner, throw them out, and occupy the nest. As if hearing Zhu Lang's words, a youth spoke up to remind them. Is that allowed? All four of them couldn't help but be taken aback. Can we actually fight inside the Hidden Dragon Camp? Inside the Hidden Dragon Camp, conflict is not prohibited. As long as no lives are taken, or people are not severely maimed, there will be no punishment. Someone, noticing their confusion, explained. Is that so? While Guo Li and the other two were still processing this, Duan Lingtian murmured to himself, walked over to an outer hut on his own, and looked at its owner. 23 years old, early stage of mortal shedding realm. This was the hut owner's cultivation level. Although at the early stage of mortal shedding realm, being able to occupy an outer hut clearly indicated his strength was not weak. Seeing Duan Lingtian approach him, he smiled faintly. What? Want to snatch my hut? I'll give it a try. Duan Lingtian nodded. Immediately after, under everyone's watchful eyes, that early-stage transcendent realm youth took the initiative to attack Duan Lingtian. Although his assault was fierce, he was defeated by Duan Lingtian in a single encounter. Mid-stage transcendent realm? After being defeated, the young man sucked in a cold breath, glanced at Duan Lingtian, said nothing more, found a hut near the edge of the cesspit, and went inside to recuperate. Only after recovering from his injuries would he have a chance to challenge the occupants of the outer huts again and seize one. Well done, Duan Lingtian. Seeing Duan Lingtian so quickly seize an outer hut, Zhu Lang couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. Meanwhile, he looked around, also finding an owner of an outer hut to challenge. Fight! Zhu Lang's luck was also good. The youth he challenged was also at the early stage of mortal shedding realm. He defeated his opponent in a few moves and seized an outer hut. Hu Jie, it's your turn. After Zhu Lang succeeded, he smiled and looked at Hu Jie. Both were from Fengyu Town and had often competed before. Naturally, they couldn't avoid it now. Humph. Hu Jie snorted lowly and also found an opponent. His opponent was also a mid-stage transcendent realm existence. At first, they were evenly matched, but in the end, the opponent defeated him decisively. With just this bit of strength, you dare come to snatch this young master's hut? Looking for death. The youth who defeated Hu Jie stared coldly at him. If not for being in the hidden dragon camp, even if I didn't kill you, this young master would definitely cripple you. Get lost. Hu Jie's face turned ugly, but since he was no match for his opponent, he could only endure the humiliation and retreat. What, beauty, you want this young master's hut too? The youth who defeated Hu Jie soon noticed Guo Li looking at him, his eyes immediately revealing lustful intent. As long as you come in and spend a night with me, I'll give you the hut and find another one. How about it? The youth's words were brazen and unrestrained, making Guo Li's face seem as if covered by a layer of frost. Even Duan Lingtian's brows couldn't help but furrow. Were there people of such low caliber in the hidden dragon camp? Whoosh! Just as numerous mocking gazes fell upon Guo Li, she had already shot out, charging towards the youth who defeated Hu Jie, using her actions to respond to him. Guo Li's speed grew faster and faster. By the time she reached the youth, his expression had also turned grave, because he discovered this beauty he had just verbally harassed seemed even stronger than Hu Jie. The youth discarded his contempt. As Guo Li closed in, he took the initiative to attack. However, he soon realized his strength was far inferior to Guo Li's. In just 3 moves, Guo Li defeated him. Is this all the strength you have? Perhaps women are all creatures who hold grudges. After defeating the youth, Guo Li stepped on his chest, speaking coldly. The youth's face turned ugly, feeling he had suffered endless humiliation. But there was nothing he could do, and no way to retaliate. Who told him he was no match for his opponent? Impressive. Guo Li's strength astonished many people. Many youths, including Hu Jie and Zhu Lang, looked at Guo Li differently. They no longer dared to underestimate her just because she was a woman. Duan Lingtian, however, was not surprised at all. Guo Li, as a woman at 27, became the strongest of the younger generation in Fengyu Town, suppressing Yi Man, who was also in the mid-stage transcendent realm. Her strength was evident. Hu Jie, who was looking for another target, saw the youth who stood up from under Guo Li's feet looking at him, and his expression changed slightly. He noticed the other's malicious gaze, clearly treating him as Guo Li's companion, and Guo Li's actions earlier were naturally seen as standing up for him. Immediately, Hu Jie gave up the idea of seizing an outer wooden cabin. Holding his nose, he found a cabin near the septic tank and moved in. Although it smelled a bit, he endured it. A true heroine. Beauty, your strength is very high. Why not try challenging the 13 protectors? Just as Duan Lingtian was about to enter his cabin, a youth looked at Guo Li, who was also about to enter, and grinned. As long as you can defeat any of the 13 protectors, you can take their cabin. Speaking, the youth pointed to the high platform behind the septic tank, where 13 brand new wooden cabins stood. Living there, you can't smell any stench, because a small wind attribute formation has been set up on one side of the platform, blowing all the stench from the septic tank toward us. The youth continued to encourage. Moreover, becoming one of the 13 protectors, even the last one, allows you to receive 100 8th grade Saint Stones every month, while people like us can only get 10 8th grade Saint Stones per month. 13 protectors? Hearing the youth's words, not only Guo Li but also Duan Lingtian, Hu Dong, and Zhu Lang looked at the 13 brand new cabins on the high platform. The people living there are the 13 protectors Senior Lin mentioned earlier. Duan Lingtian's heart stirred. Then, Guo Li and the other 2 also reacted. Damn, we only get 10 8th grade Saint Stones a month, while they get at least 100. Unfair, unfair, Zhu Lang shouted. What is the cultivation of the 13 protectors? Guo Li's eyes lit up, interested in the position, but she remained calm and didn't rush up. Except for the top 5 who are in the late profound level. The others are all in the mid-stage transcendent realm. Hearing Guo Li's question, many people scrambled to answer. The 13 cabins on the platform, from left to right, that's the ranking of the 13 protectors. The one in the leftmost cabin is the first among the 13 protectors. The one on the far right is the weakest, many explained, and even more people's eyes gleamed, waiting for the excitement, fearing the world wouldn't be chaotic enough. There are markings on them. Sharp-eyed Duan Lingtian noticed markings on the 13 cabins, from left to right, 1 to 13. Among the 13 protectors, the top 3 have the chance to be personally received and guided by the city lord. Someone else added fuel to the fire. Zhu Lang, will definitely become one of the 13 protectors, Zhu Lang shouted. Because of the no-fly formation in the city, he could only run to the side of the septic tank and jump onto the platform where the 13 protectors were. There's a good show to watch. I wonder if he can replace one of the 13 protectors. I think it's hard. Not to mention the top 5 late profound level. Even the bottom 8 mid-stage transcendent realm are elites among their rank, with extraordinary strength. Yeah, otherwise, they wouldn't occupy the positions of the 13 protectors. Many youths looked up at the platform with anticipation. Just arrived at the hidden dragon camp, and already challenging the 13 protectors? At this time, many young men and women walked out of various dilapidated cabins, attracted by Zhu Lang. After coming out, they also looked at the platform with interest. Duan Lingtian raised an eyebrow. With his heavenly eye vision, he could easily see these people were in the early stage of mortal shedding realm or mid-stage transcendent realm. It made sense. If they were in the late profound level, they would have already become one of the 13 protectors, and wouldn't be staying here, smelling the stench of the septic tank. The 13 protectors, besides receiving 108th grade Saint Stones and living where they can't smell the stench, their preferential treatment was obvious. Who wouldn't want to be one of the 13 protectors if they had some strength? Of course, it didn't rule out some masochists who liked the smell below, but Duan Lingtian knew he wasn't one. So he had decided to challenge the 13 protectors and become one of them. Soon, Zhu Lang arrived in front of the last cabin of the 13. Perhaps Zhu Lang was a bit hot-headed earlier, but after climbing the platform, he calmed down and chose the weakest of the 13 protectors, the owner of cabin number 13. Among the 13 protectors, the further forward the cabin, the better the treatment, and the strength gap between them was not small. Like the top 5, who were geniuses in the late profound level. The bottom 8, though all in the mid-stage transcendent realm, had different levels of strength. The owner of cabin 13 was undoubtedly the weakest. However, a starved camel is still bigger than a horse. Even the weakest was only relative to the other 12. The air here is much fresher. Standing before cabin 13, Zhu Lang took a deep breath, looking intoxicated. Here, not a trace of stench could be smelled. Compared to below the platform, it was like 2 different worlds. Hey, you guy in cabin 13, get out. Your grandpa Zhu has taken a fancy to your doghouse. Soon, Zhu Lang roared at cabin 13. Doghouse. Hearing Zhu Lang's words, the group including Duan Lingtian and Guo Li had strange expressions. This guy called cabin 13 a doghouse. Doesn't that mean he's fighting to live in a doghouse? Hurrah! Who dares to challenge me, Ho Lin? Almost as soon as Zhu Lang finished speaking, a loud laugh came from the cabin, arrogant and unrestrained. Just from the voice, one could tell he was a haughty person. A moment later, the door opened, and a tall, sturdy youth with evil chi on his face walked out, standing there like an iron tower, inspiring awe. This youth was nearly 2 meters tall. He was the one ranked 13th among the 13 protectors in the hidden dragon camp, with a cultivation of mid-stage transcendent realm. Among the mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivators and Dao cultivators in the hidden dragon camp, he was an elite. Now, the youth glared with fierce eyes at Zhu Lang. Is it you, this little midget, who wants to challenge me, Ho Lin? Little midget? Hearing Ho Lin's words, Duan Lingtian's mouth twitched. Zhu Lang was at least 1.7 meters tall, but in Ho Lin's mouth, he became a little midget. But then again, compared to Ho Lin's nearly 2-meter height, Zhu Lang was indeed a bit short. Then let's see how you, big guy, defeat this little midget. Hearing Ho Lin's sarcasm, Zhu Lang's face darkened, his eyes bloodshot. He kicked off the ground, his body suddenly spinning up like a tornado. What a powerful movement technique. Duan Lingtian's eyes lit up. The speed of the movement technique move Zhu Lang was using was even faster than Yi Man's from the Yi family in Fuyu Town. Of course, compared to him, there was still a distance. Your speed is quite fast, but if you only rely on speed, you won't defeat me. Facing Zhu Lang, who swept in like a tornado, Ho Lin's face became somewhat hideous, his muscles bulging, stretching his clothes. If his clothes hadn't been loose to begin with, they would have burst. Swish, 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 swish. As he approached Ho Lin, a sword appeared in Zhu Lang's hand out of thin air. The sword moved like a swimming dragon, creating sword flowers, brilliant and eye-catching. Every strike seemed to draw a sword flower in the air. Zhu Lang's sword is faster than Yi Man's saber. His overall strength is much stronger than Yi Man's. Seeing this, Duan Lingtian couldn't help but think of Yi Man, the mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivator he had fought. That was the first transcendent realm martial cultivator he had faced head-on since coming to the Dao martial Holy Land. Although his strength was decent, he was far from being Duan Lingtian's match. He had lost in just one exchange. Facing the sword flowers coming with Zhu Lang's tornado-like figure, Ho Lin's expression became more serious, and an iron rod appeared in his hand. Of course, it wasn't an ordinary iron rod. It was a medium-grade human-rank sacred artifact. Suddenly, Ho Lin gave a loud shout. The iron rod in his hand shook and was spun by him, instantly turning into a windmill, rotating rapidly in front of him. Is this an offensive move or a defensive move? Seeing the iron rod being swung by Ho Lin, creating a whistling wind and causing the void realm to vibrate, Duan Lingtian was also startled. Perhaps because of the strong gravity in the Dao martial Holy Land, Duan Lingtian found that Ho Lin's technique, which would have caused shockwaves all over the Yunxiao continent, only created waves of rolling qi here. Just then, Zhu Lang reached Ho Lin, and with the sword flowers he thrust out, he pointed at Ho Lin. Clang, 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 clang. With the sound of clashing metal, Zhu Lang's body began to tremble. Finally, the hand holding the sword shook, his web of the thumb and forefinger split, and blood flowed. At the same time, the sword in his hand was actually swept away by the iron rod in Ho Lin's hand, landing on the ground with a clatter. In the next moment, the speed of the iron rod in Ho Lin's hand slowed down. He stepped out sideways, and his large foot landed on Zhu Lang, who hadn't stabilized himself yet, kicking him away. Zhu Lang was kicked flying, tracing a perfect parabola through the air, heading straight for the septic tank below the high platform. Seeing this scene, all the surrounding spectators were stunned. In that instant, they even suspected that Ho Lin had done it intentionally. Just when everyone, including Ho Lin, thought Zhu Lang was about to fall into the septic tank, a figure swift as the wind shot out, arriving beside the septic tank in the blink of an eye. The owner of the figure stretched out a large hand, grabbed Zhu Lang's belt, pulled him to his side, and hauled him out of the septic tank. Newcomer kid, with just this much strength, you dare challenge the 13 protectors? Many of the onlookers sneered. Also being at the early stage of mortal shedding realm, yet unable to withstand even a single move from the lowest ranked among the 13 protectors. It seems the newcomers today aren't much. Waves of ridicule came forth. Amidst the jeers, Zhu Lang finally regained his senses. You are truly vicious. Realizing he had almost fallen into the septic tank, he glared furiously at Ho Lin, roaring with hatred, his eyes bloodshot, as if wanting to fight Ho Lin desperately once more. A defeated opponent can only scream and shout like a shrew. Ho Lin glanced indifferently at Zhu Lang, then looked toward the person who had saved Zhu Lang, a cold light flashing in his eyes, clearly dissatisfied with that person's actions. You, being treated with such contempt by Ho Lin, Zhu Lang's face changed drastically. Hot-headed, he wanted to step onto the high platform again. You are not his opponent. Just then, a powerful hand grasped his shoulder and shook its head at him. In that moment, Zhu Lang sobered up slightly. He looked at the person who stopped him and sincerely thanked him. Duan Lingtian, thank you. The person who intervened to save Zhu Lang was none other than Duan Lingtian. Although Duan Lingtian and Zhu Lang were meeting for the first time today and didn't have much of a relationship, Zhu Lang was, after all, the genius found by Elder Lu for the Qiushan City Lord's Mansion. And Elder Lu seemed to have a good relationship with Lin Qingrong. Because Lin Qingrong had once saved his life, he decisively intervened to save Zhu Lang, which counted as indirectly repaying a debt of gratitude. Your strength seems to be even greater than his. Do you dare to come up and try? Ho Lin stood majestically on the high platform, looking directly at Duan Lingtian, asking in a voice like a great bell. Dare he? Ho Lin's words were undoubtedly blatant provocation. As Ho Lin's voice faded, the eyes of everyone present, including Zhu Lang, simultaneously focused on Duan Lingtian. They were all curious whether Duan Lingtian would go up and fight Ho Lin. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Duan Lingtian ignored Ho Lin, acting as if he hadn't heard him at all. His gaze fell upon a graceful silhouette not far away. The owner of the silhouette was none other than Guo Li. Coward. Seeing Duan Lingtian ignore him, Ho Lin immediately became enraged, speaking contemptuously in a condescending tone. His large, gong-like eyes held not only fury but also a hint of disdain. He was extremely dissatisfied, intensely dissatisfied, with Duan Lingtian's action of saving Zhu Lang earlier. However, the Hidden Dragon Camp had rules. Unless it was to compete for a wooden dwelling and initiate a challenge, at other times, as a member of the 13 Protectors, one was forbidden from challenging other Hidden Dragon Camp members, because that would carry the suspicion of bullying the weak with strength. At this time, many people looked at Duan Lingtian with added contempt, believing he simply didn't dare to fight Ho Lin. However, Duan Lingtian's next words caused them all to freeze simultaneously. Guo Li, you go first? Duan Lingtian looked at Guo Li and asked politely. Thanks. Guo Li had originally been a little hesitant, but upon hearing Duan Lingtian's words, she immediately smiled radiantly. While many of the young men present were captivated, she flew out. In a flash, she arrived beside Duan Lingtian, nodded at him, and then floated down onto the high platform. The entire movement was smooth and flowing, like moving clouds and running water, and combined with her graceful silhouette, it was pleasing to the eye. Is he yielding Ho Lin to Guo Li? At this moment, many people looked at Duan Lingtian in astonishment. His actions suggest either he knows he's not Ho Lin's match and is using Guo Li as a shield, or he is confident he can defeat the existence ranked 12th among the 13 Protectors, who is ranked higher than Ho Lin. Someone guessed. I think it's the former. I think so too. Most people believe that Duan Lingtian knew he was not Ho Lin's opponent, so he pulled Guo Li out as a shield. Duan Lingtian paid no mind to these comments. He knew that anything he said now would be useless. His gaze quickly fell upon Guo Li, standing on the high platform. After Guo Li ascended the platform, she did not rush to engage Ho Lin. Instead, she picked up Zhu Lang's sword and tossed it back to him. Only then did she look calmly at Ho Lin, meeting his gaze. Thank you. Zhu Lang put away the sword and thanked Guo Li with a grateful expression. Little girl looks pretty good, but with that small frame of yours, are you really planning to fight me, Ho Lin? Ho Lin scrutinized Guo Li, whose physique was similar to Zhu Lang's, but noticeably weaker, and asked disdainfully. As Guo Li raised her hand, a black long whip appeared in it, looking like a black python dancing with Guo Li's movements. Guo Li answered Ho Lin with her actions. Very good, very good. It seems you treat me, Ho Lin, as a soft persimmon, easy target. Immediately, Ho Lin's face darkened, and anger flashed in his eyes. He raised the iron rod in his hand. I'd like to see just how capable you little slut are, daring to challenge me, Ho Lin. Little slut? Ho Lin's words caused Guo Li's pretty face to change color, and her autumn eyes flashed with coldness. Suddenly, Guo Li moved. With a push of her lotus feet, she shot out lightly, a sight to behold. However, during this process, Guo Li's speed became faster and faster, and before long, she turned into an afterimage in the eyes of the spectators, making her elusive. So fast. Immediately, many people exclaimed. Guo Li's speed was clearly several degrees faster than the speed Zhu Lang had displayed earlier. It seems this Ho Lin's speed is inferior to Guo Li's. Duan Lingtian's attention constantly shifted between Guo Li and Ho Lin, and he quickly noticed that Ho Lin's expression was not good when Guo Li flew out. Facts proved that Duan Lingtian's guess was correct. Faced with the swiftly approaching Guo Li, Ho Lin made no move, knowing that his speed was inferior to hers and that he couldn't possibly evade her attack. Moreover, rashly dodging when knowing his speed was inferior would only make him more passive. Therefore, Ho Lin wisely chose to stand his ground and wait for Guo Li to approach. However, the iron rod in his hand had already started to move, slowly generating wind. Around the dancing iron rod, waves of chi began to rage, just like when he faced Zhu Lang earlier. It's that move again, many people exclaimed. Naturally, this move is Ho Lin's trump card. It is said to be an offensive and defensive move from the Saint-grade martial arts he cultivates. Named impenetrable, it certainly lives up to its name. When he wields that iron rod, even the wind cannot penetrate it. This move is not only astonishing in defense, but its offensive power is also not weak at all. The whispers of the young men watching clearly entered Duan Lingtian's ears, causing his eyes to narrow involuntarily. An offensive and defensive move. Look quickly. Ho Lin has taken the initiative to attack. Suddenly, an exclamation entered Duan Lingtian's ears, pulling back the soul of Duan Lingtian, who had been momentarily distracted. At this moment, Duan Lingtian looked back at the high platform and saw Ho Lin wielding his iron rod, moving to meet Guo Li, who was sweeping forward with her black whip like a spirit snake. He seemed intent on repeating his old trick of rolling away Guo Li's weapon. Facing Ho Lin, who seemed to be rolling forward like a windmill, a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of Guo Li's mouth. As she raised her hand, the black long whip shook and instantly straightened. It could be seen that around the black long whip, faint wisps of true chi flickered, like tiny bolts of lightning jumping, emitting waves of chilling aura. Whip like a sword. As Guo Li's red lips parted slightly, the 3 words left her mouth. The next moment, the straightened long whip in her hand seemed to transform into a sword, stabbing straight toward Ho Lin. Whoosh! At this moment, what Guo Li held no longer seemed like a long whip, but a narrow, long sword. A sword. Seeing this, the disdain on Ho Lin's face intensified. He wielded the iron rod in his hand and rushed forward, clashing with Guo Li's black whip, which had transformed into a sword. In his view, the black whip in Guo Li's hand would instantly be rolled away. Clang! A crisp sound of metal colliding rang out. Guo Li's black whip, which had transformed into a sword, stabbed the whirling iron rod in Ho Lin's hand, splashing out dazzling sparks. Just as Ho Lin revealed a triumphant smile, and his iron rod, spinning like a windmill, continued forward, Guo Li's wrist made a barely noticeable movement, meeting hardness with hardness, then instantly shifting to softness when the opponent is at their hardest, using softness to overcome hardness. Guo Li's small movement went unnoticed by nearly all the spectators, including Ho Lin. The reason for saying nearly all was that Duan Lingtian saw Guo Li's movement and guessed that she intended to suddenly change her move just as Ho Lin prepared to meet her head-on. Unknowingly, the smile on Ho Lin's face had frozen. The onlookers could clearly see Guo Li's straightened black long whip suddenly softened, then, like a spirit snake, wrapped around the whirling iron rod, moving along with it. A moment later, the whirling iron rod slowed down. This is bad. When the iron rod in his hand was coiled by the black long whip, and he realized he couldn't break free, Ho Lin's expression changed drastically. Just then, Ho Lin felt a surge of great strength coming from the iron rod in his hand. It was Guo Li shaking the long whip, pulling Ho Lin, weapon and all, close to her. Before Ho Lin could react, Guo Li's other slender, jade-like hand stretched out flat and landed a palm strike on his chest. Bang! Without any suspense, Ho Lin was injured by a palm strike from Guo Li. He and his staff were thrown violently to the ground, rolling several times before stopping, looking utterly wretched. The one who had been one of the majestic 13 protectors moments ago was now a defeated opponent at the hands of a woman. You lost. Guo Li shook the long black whip in her hand, making it snap straight again. She pointed it directly at Ho Lin and spoke in a calm tone. Creak. Just as Ho Lin and the onlookers were still processing what happened, the door to the wooden house where the 13 protectors resided, specifically, wooden house number 12, opened. Following that, a person walked out from inside. This was a young man about the same height as Duan Lingtian, standing at a full 1.8 meters. Compared to Ho Lin, he looked a bit leaner. However, his eyes inadvertently revealed a hint of coldness. One look was enough to tell he was not a good sort. TSK. Ho Lin, you really are a disgrace to us 13 protectors, being defeated by a little slip of a girl. From this moment on, your name is removed from the 13 protectors. The cold young man looked at Ho Lin, who was struggling to stand up, and mocked him. Li Han. Ho Lin swept a cold glance at the cold young man, but said nothing more, jumping straight down from the high platform. It was just as Li Han said. From this moment on, he was no longer a member of the 13 protectors. For the 13 protectors, if one of the higher-ranked individuals was defeated, they would only drop back one rank and wouldn't be removed. But the problem was, he was ranked 13th. There was nowhere left to retreat. Guo Li is it? 3 months at most. I, Ho Lin, will personally take back what you snatched away today. After jumping off the high platform, Ho Lin looked at Guo Li and said every word with emphasis. After speaking, without waiting for Guo Li's response, he seemed to turn into a gust of wind, blowing toward a dilapidated wooden house on the outer edge. He kicked away the person in front of the house and dove inside. Who did I provoke? The unlucky young man who was kicked away and had his wooden house seized wore a bitter smile. With so many people in this row of wooden houses, why did Ho Lin choose him? Of course, although his house was taken by Ho Lin, he didn't dare to take it back. What a joke. If he could snatch a house from Ho Lin's hands, he would have replaced Ho Lin and become one of the 13 protectors long ago. I didn't expect a woman to join our 13 protectors. Standing in front of wooden house number 12, Li Han looked at Guo Li and smiled slightly. However, Guo Li ignored him and instead looked down below the high platform. Immediately, Li Han's expression darkened. Following that, he followed Guo Li's gaze and discovered that where she was looking, there stood a young man, a youth dressed in purple. For a moment, a hint of hostility rose in his eyes. Duan Lingtian, my position is quite awkward. Guo Li looked at Duan Lingtian and smiled. Hearing Guo Li's words, aside from Duan Lingtian, no one else, including Li Han, understood what she meant. Who told you to choose number 13? Duan Lingtian shook his head with a smile. He naturally guessed what Guo Li meant by that. When Guo Li said her position was awkward, it was simply because her current rank among the 13 protectors was awkward. Number 13, the very last place. At this time, no matter which of the people ahead of her Duan Lingtian defeated, she would be eliminated. Then I can only fight another round. Guo Li shrugged and spoke somewhat helplessly. At the same time, her gaze landed on Li Han, revealing a thick battle intent. At this point, everyone present, including Li Han, finally reacted. In this moment, they finally understood the meaning of Guo Li's words. She was not content to be ranked 13th among the 13 protectors. She felt this position was awkward, and this position was indeed awkward. No matter who ahead of her was defeated, she would be eliminated. Just like Ho Lin, who was previously ranked 13th among the 13 protectors. The reason he was willing to be ranked last was because he had fought everyone except for the top 5. 7 battles, 7 defeats. Therefore, he could only settle for the last place. As for the top 5 among the 13 protectors, they were all existences at the late-stage transcendent realm. He had self-awareness, let alone launching a challenge. He didn't even dare to have the thought of challenging them. It seems Guo Li wants to challenge Li Han, the 12th of the 13 protectors. Many people whispered in surprise. If it were me, if I could defeat Ho Lin, I would definitely challenge those ranked higher. You know, for the 13 protectors, the higher the rank, the more benefits you can get. Someone else spoke up. His words received much agreement. If given the chance, who wouldn't want to take another step forward? Therefore, Guo Li's actions were beyond reproach. I wonder if she can defeat Li Han. She should be able to. Even Ho Lin was defeated by her in a head-on clash. Li Han's strength isn't much greater than Ho Lin's. It took him over 30 moves to defeat Ho Lin last time. The group of youths below the platform discussed animatedly, and they were more optimistic about Guo Li. Meanwhile, the youth whose wooden house had been snatched by Guo Li earlier and who had been taught a lesson by her for his insolence now looked at Guo Li with a face full of fear. If he had any thoughts of revenge before, then now, those thoughts were completely dispelled. You want to challenge me? Li Han looked at Guo Li, as if wanting to confirm. Make your move. Guo Li nodded indifferently. The long black whip in her hand shook, dancing like a venomous snake and giving off a sinister feeling. This feeling was similar to the feeling one got looking at Li Han. Good, very good. Li Han's face turned pale and then flushed. His cold eyes were full of evil chi. Although he had no certainty of defeating the woman before him, he was now in a difficult position and had no choice but to accept the challenge. If he didn't accept, it would mean he admitted defeat. That would undoubtedly be even more embarrassing. Moreover, he wouldn't be resigned to it. I'll take you on. Li Han quickly spat out 3 words. Before Guo Li was even ready, he had already shot out like lightning. Everywhere he passed, cold winds blew, and in the blink of an eye, he was already in front of Guo Li. So shameless. Seeing Li Han sneak attack on Guo Li, many people cursed under their breath. Of course, they only dared to curse quietly. They didn't dare to provoke Li Han. Li Han was the person ranked 12th among the 13 protectors. Among the dozens of mid-stage transcendent realm martial cultivators and Dao cultivators in the Hidden Dragon camp, he was ranked 7th. This point alone was enough to prove that his strength was not something an ordinary mid-stage, transcendent realm martial cultivator could compare to. However, facing Li Han's sneak attack, Guoli's expression remained unchanged. When Li Han appeared before her, a steel claw appeared in each of his hands, emitting a bone-chilling cold air as they clawed toward her. The long black whip in her hand suddenly shook and began to rotate in front of her. Immediately, where the long whip reached, it turned into a black light shield, enveloping her entire person. This was precisely a defensive move from the Saint-grade martial arts Guoli cultivated. As soon as the defensive move appeared, it blocked Li Han's attack. Li Han's pair of steel claws left a series of sparks and embers on it, but failed to break through. This made Li Han's expression extremely ugly, and he had no choice but to retreat. The sneak attack ended in failure. After Li Han retreated, Guoli moved, lunging straight for him. Li Han moved accordingly, but his speed was a bit weaker than Guoli's. Of course, it was much stronger than the Ho Lin who had just been defeated by her. This Li Han is going to lose. In fact, as early as when Li Han's attack was blocked by Guoli's defensive move, Duan Lingtian knew he was bound to lose. The defensive move had blocked Li Han's attack. Although it was a bit strained, it had indeed blocked it. Being able to block an opponent's attack was equivalent to being in an invincible position. In addition, Guoli wasn't just strong in defense. Her movement techniques and attacks were also very strong. Her strength in all aspects was balanced, making her a martial cultivator with very strong comprehensive strength. Just as Duan Lingtian thought, in less than 10 moves, Guoli sent Li Han flying with a whip strike, defeating him. Li Han suffered minor injuries. At the very least, his injuries were lighter than Ho Lin's. Guoli's final move to defeat Li Han seemed to have held back. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Li Han's injuries to be this light. Many people saw the clues. She is a woman after all. Maybe she went soft-hearted at the end. Someone else said, take an innate medicinal pill, and your injuries should heal within 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, you should be able to return to your peak state. And while many people were whispering, Guoli looked at Li Han and said indifferently. Li Han was stunned, not knowing what Guoli meant by pointing out his injuries. His injuries were indeed as Guoli said. He only needed to take an innate medicinal pill and rest for 15 minutes to fully recover. The innate medicinal pill Guoli mentioned was equivalent to the royal grade pill on the Yunxiao continent. Above innate medicinal pills were saint-grade medicinal pills. Duan Lingtian had learned this from Xue Nai long ago. For Li Han's minor injury, taking an innate medicinal pill equivalent to a royal grade pill actually takes 15 minutes to heal. Is it because of the environment of the Dao martial Holy Land? Or because the medicinal power of innate medicinal pills is difficult to integrate into the body of a transcendent realm martial cultivator? Regarding this, Duan Lingtian also felt puzzled. Just as Guoli said, 15 minutes after taking the innate medicinal pill, Li Han's complexion recovered, and he was once again full of vigor. With a dark face, he walked toward wooden house number 13 behind Guoli. I think you don't need to go in. Guoli said, what do you mean? Li Han's face darkened. After defeating him, did this little slip of a girl want to humiliate him too? What she means is, you're about to be eliminated. And just then, a calm voice traveled from below the high platform to the top. When it reached Li Han's ears, a third person appeared on the high platform. Duan Lingtian stood on the high platform, took a deep breath, and involuntarily showed a look of intoxication. Although he could adapt to the environment below the platform, when he came up and could no longer smell the stench, he still preferred the environment on the platform. Whoosh! Seeing Duan Lingtian also step onto the high platform, the entire place broke into an uproar. What he means is, he's going to challenge Li Han. Many people looked at Duan Lingtian and reacted in due time.